Imagine a man who not only murders, but also violates and consumes the flesh of a young woman, an act so horrifying it seems impossible to comprehend. Now, imagine that this man never spends a single day behind bars for his crime. He walks free, untouched by the justice system that should have held him accountable. Instead of facing punishment, he transforms into a media sensation, appearing on television, writing books about his experiences, and even reviewing gourmet food for popular magazines, as if his past were nothing more than a dark curiosity. This is the true and deeply disturbing story of Issei Sagawa, a man whose gruesome crime and subsequent freedom sent shockwaves across continents, leaving both Japan and France reeling in disbelief. His case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about justice, mental health, and the unsettling fascination society sometimes has with infamy and notoriety. In the summer of 1981, on the quiet streets of Paris, Sagawa's actions ignited a saga that would haunt the city and the world, leaving a trail of horror, confusion, and endless debate. The world watched in morbid fascination as the man who had committed an unthinkable act became a household name in Japan, appearing on talk shows and in interviews, his infamy growing with every appearance. In this chapter, we'll delve into the chilling details of his crime, the international legal loopholes that allowed him to walk free, and the bizarre celebrity status he achieved in the aftermath. How did a seemingly ordinary literature student with a passion for books and poetry transform into a cannibal, and then, against all odds, into a public figure embraced by the media? What failures in the legal and mental health systems allowed him to escape meaningful punishment, and what does this say about the boundaries of justice? This is a story that challenges our deepest beliefs about right and wrong, sanity and evil, and the power of the media to shape public perception. Prepare yourself for a journey into one of the most unsettling and controversial true crimes in modern history, a case that continues to haunt and fascinate to this day. Paris, 1981. The city was alive with the hum of summer, its boulevards bustling with students, artists, and dreamers. But beneath the romantic veneer, a chilling story was about to unfold. Issei Sagawa, a Japanese doctoral student, wandered the city's ancient streets, consumed by a dark and growing obsession that set him apart from his peers. Small and frail, Sagawa was often overlooked, but his gaze was fixed on Renee Hartevelt, a tall, vibrant Dutch classmate whose presence seemed to fill every room she entered. Sagawa became convinced that by consuming her, he could somehow absorb her strength, her beauty, and the confidence he so desperately lacked. On June 11th, he invited Renee to his small Paris apartment, using the innocent pretense of translating poetry for their university studies, a request she had no reason to question. Renee, trusting and kind, accepted the invitation, completely unaware that she was stepping into a deadly trap from which she would never return. As she sat at his table, reading poetry aloud in her gentle voice, Sagawa quietly retrieved a rifle he had hidden nearby. Without warning, he shot her in the neck. Renee died instantly, her life extinguished in a moment of shocking violence. For Sagawa, this was only the beginning of a nightmare he had long fantasized about. Alone with Renee's body, he violated her remains, driven by a singular horrifying purpose: to eat her flesh and fulfill his most twisted desires. In the silence of his apartment, Sagawa's long-held fantasy became a gruesome reality, and he crossed a line from which there was no return. The academic facade he wore so carefully was gone, replaced by the cold, calculating cannibal beneath. Every detail had been meticulously planned. He had mapped out his actions, written notes, and prepared for this moment with chilling precision. The stage was set for a private feast, a macabre dinner that would soon make him infamous around the world. Renee's trust, so freely given, was betrayed in the most unimaginable and tragic way possible. The horror of Sagawa's crime was about to erupt into public view, sending shockwaves through Paris and the entire world. After the murder, Sagawa began his gruesome ritual, alone in the dim silence of his Paris apartment. The city outside continued its nightly rhythm, unaware of the horror unfolding within those walls. He carved flesh from Renee's body, starting with her thighs and buttocks, methodically separating muscle from bone. Each cut was deliberate, as if he were performing a dark, private ceremony. He later described the taste with chilling detachment, comparing it to raw tuna. Soft, almost familiar, yet utterly forbidden. The act was not just about hunger, but about fulfilling a fantasy that had haunted him for years. Cooking some of the flesh, He prepared a teriyaki dish, treating human meat as ordinary food. The sizzle of the pan, the aroma of sauce, he tried to mask the horror with ritual, pretending for a moment that nothing was amiss. Sagawa documented everything: photographs, audio recordings, and detailed notes. He wanted to remember every detail, to relive the experience again and again as if proof of his own existence depended on it. He spoke of his inadequacy and his twisted desire to absorb Renee's vitality, believing that by consuming her, he could somehow become whole, or at least less invisible to the world. For 2 days he lived among her remains, eating, sleeping, and continuing his macabre feast. The apartment became a prison, each hour stretching into eternity as he spiraled deeper into madness. The apartment became a charnel house, thick with the stench of death. Flies gathered and the air grew heavy, suffocating as the reality of his actions began to close in. Sagawa's obsession was now a horrifying reality. The fantasy that had once seemed distant and abstract was now inescapable, and he was trapped within it. But decomposition set in, forcing him to confront a new problem: disposal. The body could not remain hidden forever, and the smell was becoming impossible to ignore. The fantasy was over. The practical nightmare had begun. Panic set in as he realized the enormity of what he had done and the impossibility of escape. He needed to get rid of the evidence before it consumed him. Every sound in the hallway became a threat, every shadow a possible witness. Sagawa's next move would lead to his downfall. The world outside was closing in, and his secret was on the verge of exposure. The line between fantasy and horror had vanished. There was no turning back, only the certainty of consequences. The world was about to discover his secret, and the nightmare he had created would soon become a global sensation. Sagawa tried to dispose of Renee's remains by stuffing them into 2 suitcases. He dragged them to the Bois de Boulogne, hoping to hide them in the park's lake. His struggle with the heavy luggage drew attention from passers-by and a suspicious taxi driver. A couple curious about the abandoned suitcases made a horrifying discovery: a woman's dismembered torso. Police quickly traced the taxi ride back to Sagawa's apartment. When confronted, Sagawa confessed immediately, showing no remorse. The evidence was overwhelming: bloodstains, body parts, and the tools of his crime. He calmly told police, "I killed her to eat her flesh." There was no denial, only a detailed account of his actions. Sagawa was arrested, and the shocking details of his crime began to emerge. Paris was gripped by horror and disbelief. The case would soon take an even stranger turn. Justice, it seemed, was inevitable. But the story was far from over. With Sagawa's confession and overwhelming evidence, a swift conviction seemed certain, but his defense argued insanity, claiming he was not criminally responsible. French psychiatrists declared him legally insane and unfit for trial. Instead of prison, Sagawa was sent to a psychiatric institution. The Hartvelt family was devastated, denied justice for Renee. Sagawa spent years in the institution as his case became a diplomatic issue between France and Japan. Under pressure, France deported him to Japan in 1983, expecting further confinement. But a legal technicality changed everything. Japanese authorities found they could not legally detain him. He had not been convicted, and the French documents weren't binding. Without a conviction or valid psychiatric order, Japan had no grounds to hold him. Sagawa had slipped through a loophole between 2 legal systems. The monster was about to walk free. Justice had failed at every turn. The world watched in disbelief. In Japan, Sagawa was technically innocent. Charges dropped, paperwork incomplete. Doctors declared him sane enough for release, calling his cannibalism a sexual perversion, not psychosis. On August 12, 1986, just 5 years after the murder, Sagawa walked free. Outrage erupted worldwide, but the law was powerless. Sagawa embraced his infamy, settling in Tokyo and reinventing himself as a public figure. He made no attempt to hide, instead capitalizing on his notoriety. The legal system's failure had set a killer loose. His freedom marked the start of a disturbing new chapter. Instead of fading away, Sagawa became a minor celebrity in Japan. He wrote best-selling books about his crime, appeared on talk shows, and reviewed restaurants for magazines. He even starred in adult films, turning his notoriety into a brand. Sagawa never showed remorse, speaking of his crime with chilling detachment. He viewed his victim as an object, not a person. His story seeped into pop culture, referenced by musicians and filmmakers. The 2017 documentary Cannibal showed him unrepentant, still living with his brother. Sagawa lived free for over 35 years, dying in 2022 at age 73. His life was a monument to a profound failure of justice. Cannibalism is humanity's ultimate taboo, rooted in power, control, and a warped desire for intimacy. For Sagawa, consuming Renee was about possession, making her a literal part of himself. Psychologists say such acts stem from deep inadequacy and a need to overcome perceived weakness. The act is ritualistic, blending violence, sexual gratification, and a desperate attempt at transformation. Sagawa's documentation of his crime reveals a narcissistic need to relive his power. Other cannibals, like Armin Meiwes, share similar motivations, a desire for complete union. These acts represent a total collapse of civilized boundaries. Issei Sagawa's story endures as a chilling reminder of the darkness within humanity and the failures of justice. He was never held accountable, living free while his victim's memory was overshadowed by his infamy. His case forces us to question how society responds to the monstrous and why we're drawn to the taboo. The media and public fascination turned his crime into entertainment, blurring the line between understanding evil and glorifying it. Legal loopholes and bureaucratic failures let a killer walk free, exposing vulnerabilities in international law. The pain of Renee Hardevelt's family is the human cost of this failure. Sagawa's tale is a cautionary one, psychologically, legally, and culturally. It challenges our sense of security and order. What are your thoughts on a killer turning his crime into a career? Share your perspective below. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the true nature of darkness.